More pigs! Too good, no? Fresh gata? Check ba sa 5 sarap signs ng fresh gata? Wow! Maputi, malapot, mabango, makrema, manamis-namis pa. Kompleto sa 5 sarap signs. Nom nom nom! Good nom!
Godzilla!
It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not.
Still, we should run like it is Godzilla!
Though it isn't.
Representing the blood of those who fought for Afghanistan. And the crescent and star not only representing Islam, but the red of the crescent and star also representing the blood of those who fought for Algeria. Red representing, you guessed it, the blood of those who fought for Angola. And the red represents the, say it with me, the blood shed for those who fought for the country. Once again, say it with me, the blood shed for those who fought for the country. And the red represents the valor and, once again, the blood spilled of those who fought for the country. And guess what the red symbolizes? The blood of those who fought for the country! And the red stands for the blood of those who fought for the country. And the red stands for and the red stands for fraternity and freedom, as well as the red stands for the struggle for national liberation, which, okay, I guess it kind of qualifies. So here you go. And the red stands for and the red stands for and the red stands for strength. And the red stands for syntax error 404. Please reload page and try again. Network administrator is offline. Oh, sorry, wrong script. It really actually stands for. And the red stands for. The red stands for, and this is probably the part where you'd expect an animation from like Vincent or Potter, but technical difficulties, it couldn't get done on time. So here's the next best thing. Weird, never before seen footage. And the red stands for. And the red stands for strength. And The red stands for... And the red stands for... It stands for... Finally, the red stands for... The red stands for patriotism, determination, and anti-Japanese fervor. And... And the red stands for... Finally, the red stands for the Lao and Isan people group that live on opposite sides of the Mekong River, hence why it's made that way on the flag. But it also stands for... Oh, and it also stands for... Whereas the red stands for... The red stands for...
Need the strength to keep going? New Tiger, tumutulong magbigay ng lakas para mas kayanin nila.
Kaya pa!
Someone's emailed us asking which country's shape is most like a square.
What a stupid question.
Totally pointless. Slovakia?
No.
Georgia?
No. Bangladesh?
No, Bangladesh looks like a wizard.
You think everything looks like a wizard. Ghana?
Too long.
North Macedonia?
Too round.
Liberia?
No.
Malaysia?
Jay, Malaysia is not a square.
But there must be one somewhere.
Not in Oman or the UAE. And Yemen's more a rectangle.
Yes, I can see.
Russia's nothing like a square.
Too long, as far as I'm aware. Mali starts off strongly, but right here it goes to pot.
Burkina Faso is irregular. Four-sided, it is not.
Italy's a boot.
And so is Papua New Guinea.
What about Benin and Togo?
No, they're both far too skinny.
What about these little countries? Costa Rica, Lebanon?
There's no square in Singapore, Brunei, Mauritius or Gabon.
Kuwait looks like a little thumb, Madagascar looks quite lean.
Burundi looks quite like a heart, Qatar looks like a bean.
India's a diamond and Slovenia's a splot.
Cuba's very long and thin and both Koreas are short and squat.
Mozambique has got too many sides, Uzbekistan as well. Little Paraguay's no paradigm, Mauritania's an L.
And Malawi's like a seahorse, Guinea-Bissau's a weathered rock. And Nauru's nearly a circle and Somalia's a sock.
France is famously a hexagon, that fact is quite well known. But it's not the only one, it's joined by Sierra Leone.
What about these landlocked countries like Nepal or South Sudan?
They're not square and nor are Denmark, Finland, China or Iran.
Luxembourg's are all squares, which their borders don't reflect. And Australia's a cat dog and Japan we must reject.
Guatemala has two squarish sides in this bit in the north, but it won't meet our criteria cause it needs a third and fourth.
Timor-Leste
Doesn't pass the test.
Moldova, Guinea.
Don't be silly.
Little Rwanda.
Doesn't stand a hope in hell.
Nor does Israel.
Are we seriously going to go through every country?
Yes, I think it's important. Both the USA and Canada have squares in large amounts, but we're only counting countries and states don't count.
Poland would look like a square if it invaded to the south. Kazakhstan looks like a turtle with a leaf stuck in its mouth.
Despite a square's efficiency, the Germans don't come close.
And Peru is like a resting dog, Guyana's like a ghost.
Ethiopia and Switzerland look like potato wedges.
Norway, Sweden and New Zealand all have far too crinkly edges.
If you have a lot of coastline, then your sides will not be straight, so the squareness of the Philippines, Greece and Ireland would be great.
Tajikistan's quite funky, as is elephant head-shaped island. There's no square in Indonesia's 18,000 tiny islands.
If your country's made of islands, then a square you'll never be. There are loads of island nations that are mostly MTC.
Trinidad and Tobago, St Vincent and the Grenadines, the Solomon Islands, the Seychelles, the Maldives, Micronesia, Fiji, the Marshall Islands, St Kitts and Nevis, Sao Tome and Principe, the Bahamas, Cape Verde, Tonga, Vanuatu.
The Netherlands is flat, although its edges do not fit. And the following are countries with a sticky outy bit. There's Afghanistan, Namibia, the DRC's got two.
There's Ukraine, Venezuela, Eritrea, Cyprus and Kosovo.
Is Morocco square?
No, it's more a stare.
Kiribati?
Not square, alas.
Senegal?
Not square at all.
San Marino?
San Marino.
The CAR, so near, so far. Botswana's like a flounder.
Chad looks like Jay Leno. Eswatini couldn't be rounder.
Mongolia looks like a bat. The Congo's kind of foxy.
Myanmar's like a genie and not even slightly boxy. Belize has one edge here that's straight, but this bit's rather lumpy.
Algeria and Kenya are pentagons. Honduras is too bumpy.
Sri Lanka's like a raindrop. Kyrgyzstan's a bird in flight.
While Iraq and Jordan's lines are straight, the angles just aren't right. Colombia's kind of squarish, though its borders are quite rough. And Iberia would pass, but Spain alone's not square enough.
If Bolivia expanded, then a square it just might be. Nicaragua would look square if you viewed it in 3D.
Little Liechtenstein and the Argentines are not square in the least.
The Dominican Republic, that just tapers to the east. Lesotho's sort of squarish, but the angle's on the wonk.
Cameroon is like a chicken with a huge badonkadonk.
Mexico?
No.
Portugal?
Too thin, too tall.
The Saudis?
Too much on a slant.
The Vatican?
The Vatican.
Listing every country by its shape is not an easy job, when inevitably loads of them look only like a blob.
So to make things more efficient, as I'm sure you've got the gist, here are all the blobby countries in a quick compiled list.
Andorra, Antigua and Barbuda, Austria, Barbados, Belgium, Belarus, Bhutan, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cambodia, Czechia, Djibouti, Dominica, Estonia, Grenada, Hungary, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Serbia, St. Lucia, Tanzania, Uruguay, Zimbabwe.
Sama's like a butterfly whose wings have been removed.
But at Ecuador and Bahrain, and it's massively improved.
Little Monaco's so tiny you can see the piers within.
Chile's very, 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 very long and thin.
Uganda cannot be a square because of all the lakes. The Gambia, Vietnam and Panama all look like snakes.
Haiti, Croatia and Zambia all have shapes that wrap around. Syria's just a bit too slopey and El Salvador's too long.
That doesn't rhyme.
Palau looks like a jellyfish, Pakistan looks like a duck.
Azerbaijan looks like a bird that's been run over by a truck.
This monkey is Armenian.
This shooting star's Laotian.
Jamaica, Malta and Niger are creatures from the ocean.
Greenland's not a real country even though it's really big.
The UK looks like an old witch sitting sideways on a pig.
Comoros would if it were glued.
Some parts of Tuvalu look rude.
Turkmenistan looks like something or another.
Tunisia and Albania look like each other.
South Africa's too wobbly, Bulgaria's too knobbly, Brazil is too triangular, Turkey is too rectangular. Now the only countries left are ones whose squareness are the best.
If you know which ones are coming, we're incredibly impressed.
Little Montenegro square if you rotate it some degrees.
South Sudan has left behind a very square North Sudanese.
The angles in Angola mean it's nearly good to go. And Nigeria comes close although it bulges down below.
Libya is nearly square, it's more a parallelogram.
And Cote d'Ivoire and Suriname do well in our exam.
Equatorial Guinea's very square, but unfortunately, since its capital's on an island, then the squarest it can't be. So the winner of our contest, fitting all our tight prescriptions,
it's the squarest of the squarest.
The nation of the pharaohs,
the land of Cleopatra,
the country where the Sphinx is, it's the land of the Egyptians.
Any more interesting emails come in?
There's one asking for every capital city in the world.
Oh, that would have made a much better song.
Next on the Day After Yesterday programme, Professor John Whitstable joins us to discuss the life and work of Noel Edmonds.
Finally, a topic I'm really interested in.
Professor, good morning. Good morning. I'd like to start with Noel's first television appearance on Swap Shop in 1976.
What? No, it wasn't. It was Top of the Pops in 1972.
Swap Shop was, of course, one of Edmonds' most influential works.
Excuse me? Are you listening? I said it was Top of the Pops.
And was this the show that made Edmonds a household name on ITV? Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. Noel Edmonds never had a show on ITV. Please correct your mistake and apologise.
Of course, Noel Edmonds went on to play Captain America in the Marvel movies. Now, this is a fact.
Hello? You're talking rubbish. Can anyone hear me?
That's fascinating, Professor, and I wonder if...
Hello?
Oh, hello there. I'm just calling to find out if you're happy with your current audio listening platform.
Well, actually, I'm not. I've been talking to my radio and it's been completely ignoring me.
Would you like to hear about a new app called Stereo that lets you join in the discussion?
Well, yes, I would.
So Stereo is a completely free app that you can download onto your phone, and you can listen to live conversations happening between people from across the world, and you can actually leave your own comments for them to listen to and play out.
That sounds great. Can I broadcast my own conversations too?
So you can actually broadcast your own conversations as well, either by scheduling a chat with a friend, or the app will randomly place you with another Stereo user, and you can just start chatting and broadcasting immediately.
So it's a great way to meet new people.
So to get started, all you do is download the Stereo app and create your own avatar avatar, and you can accessorize that too if you like.
Can I have a halo and a monocle?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have a halo and a monocle. Just put that through for you now.
So any shows you'd recommend?
So we're currently recommending a show called Map Men Get Lost. That will be on at 6:30 p.m. today. That's 12th of April 2021. It's a great opportunity to ask the Mapmen any questions you might have. So if you'd just like to click on the link in the description below, that'll take you straight through to the show. Okay. Okay, anything else I can help you with today?
No thanks, I'll download Stereo immediately. Bye! Now, how do I find the App Store?
It's on your phone, stupid.
If you could plonk the other one down anywhere in the world and they would have to find out where they are, Jay, where would you put Mark? And Mark, where would you put Jay?
What I would do is find the field where you are convinced that you're really far away, but it's as close as possible to your house.
Yeah. I would like to place you in the Darien Gap between Panama and Colombia that connects Central America and South America. So thick jungle and marshland and swamp and really inhospitable. I just want to see if you'd survive. I'm just interested.
What a cruel thing to do.
They must have me confused with the enemy!
I'm afraid I wasn't telling the truth, Henry.
There is no antidote.
What do you mean? No cure that will bring you back to your former self.
You see, the government stopped funding my project 2 years ago.
So I looked elsewhere for funding.
Dr. Kentlove was more than willing to dole out any amount of cash. He wanted the serum, he said, as a cure for his ED.
He gave more than I could ever imagine.
Now that you created the serum and proved it successful, I no longer needed his backing. So I had no choice other than to eliminate it.
The government will probably give me an award for this.
For creating an army of superhuman soldiers.
You're crazy, you know that? You're sick!
And now I shall eliminate you.
You bastard!
Mission accomplished.
Good job, soldier. Cupcake. What's wrong? How did you get in here?
What happened? Did something happen to Hank?
Honey, Hank knew he was risking his life when he agreed to this mission. He stopped Cantla. But I'm afraid he got himself killed in the process. He was a brave man. Never forget that.
No. No! No!
Chupa Chups, forever fun.
Animated, totally insane. Pinky and the Brainy. Animaniacs, those are the facts.
And now, the nations of the world, brought to you by Yakko Warner.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam. Norway and Sweden and Iceland and Finland and Germany now one piece. Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey and Greece. Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman. Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq and Iran. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait and Bahrain. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium and Portugal, France, England, Denmark and Spain. India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan, Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan, Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand, then Borneo and Vietnam, Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Guinea, Algeria, Ghana. Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo, the Spanish Sahara is gone. Niger, Nigeria, Chad and Liberia, Egypt, Benin and Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya and Mali, Sierra Leone and Algeria, Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Major and Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia, Crete, Mauritania, then Transylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan.
Stealing food, stealing food, stealing food, food, food. Eating what belongs to others puts me in a good mood. Though my friends say that I shouldn't, there is nothing that I wouldn't steal. Food, 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 food. I'm a veritable gastronomic kleptomaniac. While my friends are having dinner is when I like to attack. I say, look, what's that behind you? And they turn around to see. Then I finish what they're eating and I say it wasn't me. Stealing food, stealing food, stealing food, food, food. Chiefing chips and pinching Pringles puts me in a good mood. Food is so much more delicious if my friends are all suspicious. Stealing food, 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 food. Now the most efficient way to satisfy your appetite is to eat from your friend's cupboards in the middle of the night. But no matter if you're tempted, you should never take the lot. Leave the packaging behind, remind them what they haven't got. Stealing food, stealing food, stealing food, food, food. When I risk it for a biscuit, then I'm in a good mood. It's the best of all decisions, going klepto on provision. Stealing food, 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 food. At the local supermarket, they've got food on every shelf. Simply hide it in your jumper, you can take it for yourself. If the camera doesn't see you and you're relatively quick, you can fill yourself for days with all the things that you can nick. Stealing food, stealing food, stealing food, food, food. Runawaying without paying puts me in a good mood. With my method tried and tested, I will never be arrested. Stealing food, 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 food. On the A1M in Hatfield there's a warehouse, yes that's right. Massive lorry loads of food go in and out all day and night. If you're clever with your timing and there's 10 of you at least, you'll be driving home a lorry with a veritable feast. Stealing food, stealing food, stealing food, food, food. Jacking lorry loads from Sainsbury's puts me in a good mood. Stealing, 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 stealing food, 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 food. Pinch the peanuts, nick the knick-knacks, take the tea bags, burgle the beef burgers, grab the grape juice, rob the rice cakes, heist the hobnobs, volley vol au vent, lift the lurpak, snatch the snacker jacks, jack the Jaffa cakes, pick up the penguins, yoink the yum yums, swipe the sweeties, stealing food.
Welcome to Map Men.
We're Tup Men.
And here's Tip Map.
Map Men, Map Men, Map Men.
In today's programme, we're going to talk about counties.
Counties are the building blocks that make up Britain. The units you're expected to have heard of to help place towns and villages you've not heard of, such as Wingerworth.
Where?
In Derbyshire.
Oh, where's Derbyshire?
Arguably, the county that inspires the fiercest pride and loyalty in its inhabitants is Yorkshire.
Yorkshire is known for Yorkshire puddings, Yorkshire terriers and Yorkshire tea, which comes from this part of Yorkshire. With its distinctive accent, strong identity and intense one-way rivalry with Lancashire next door, Yorkshire folk are proud to tell everyone they come across that they come from Yorkshire.
And they're all wrong to do so, because Yorkshire doesn't exist.
Yes, it does.
Alright, show me a map with Yorkshire on it.
OK. Here. This map of the 39 counties of England clearly shows a county called Yorkshire.
But this map of the 48 counties of England shows separate north, south, west and east riding of Yorkshire, but no single county called Yorkshire.
But my map is correct and up to date.
So is mine. And so's this one.
What's going on?
We're doing Map Men.
No, I mean with the counties.
Well, the definition of county in Britain is a minefield of anomalies, asterisks, confusions, vague areas and contradictory Wikipedia articles. The more you look for answers about what a county really is, the more questions you come across.
Which is perhaps why no one's attempted to do a video about them before.
Even Google Docs won't let you type the word county without suggesting, did you mean country?
But we're not taking citation needed for an answer. It's time to do some actual research to find out once and for all, what is a county? And go!
Right, now that we've eaten all those biscuits, should we start doing some research?
I've done it all. The first time England was split into what we now call counties was back in the 10th century when King Aethelstan wanted to make sure all the same laws were being obeyed and all the same taxes were being collected all across England.
Which, curiously, is the opposite reason why you divide a nation up nowadays.
He split his kingdom into bite-sized manageable chunks and sent an earl to be in charge of each one of them.
How they got their names tells you a bit about how they were formed.
These were named after ethnic groups or old kingdoms that existed before England.
These ones that end in sex were part of the Saxon kingdoms which spread across the south of England.
And these ones took their name from the most important town, the county town, and added the Anglo-Saxon word shire on the end, the same word that sheriff comes from.
Shire, sheriff, ooh!
And for our American viewers, it's pronounced sheer, not shire.
Actually, it's pronounced shire, not sheer, plebs.
Over the centuries, these areas have been controlled by earls, dukes, sheriffs, lords, and at one point, counts, which is how they came to be known as counties.
The precise location of exactly where one county stopped and another one started wasn't important in those days. Nobody tried to draw the boundaries on a map until the 1080s when the Normans did a survey.
Hello Norman, I've done a survey of all the people who say they live in Worcestershire.
Thanks Norman, I'll just add that to my survey of all the people who say they live in Gloucestershire.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. And that's how the fuzzy county borders became sharp lines, but with lots of panhandles, detached areas, exclaves and squiddly bits.
England's counties varied massively in size. The biggest, Yorkshire, was half the size of Wales, and the smallest, Rutland, was roughly the size of a Wale with 0 cities and frankly had no business being a county.
Harsh.
But these differences didn't really matter until... In 1888, the Prime Minister Lord Salisbury established administrative counties, making democracy local.
Each county would now have its own county council in the county town, in charge of local things like police, fire, council tax and so on.
But some counties were too big to be easily manageable.
Sussex got split into east and west.
And Yorkshire was split into its historic ridings, a word that meant thirds.
Ridings, yeah, that sort of works.
In addition to this, big cities were given the status of county borough, which made them independent from the county they were in, effectively taking the Leicester out of Leicestershire, Derby out of Derbyshire, and Nottingham out of Nottinghamshire. So does this all mean that a united Yorkshire hasn't existed since 1888?
Well, not exactly. Strap in. The new administrative counties did not replace the historic counties. Both systems confusingly coexisted at the same time.
And the confusion was only going to get worse.
Lots of towns in Britain had the same name.
This often caused confusion, with many people's letters being delivered to the wrong place.
Which is why from 18-something onwards, the Royal Mail required that every address had to end with a county.
But
because many post towns happened to spread inconveniently across county borders, the Royal Mail, for their own convenience, introduced the last thing Britain needed. Another county's map.
The post office's counties didn't match up with the historic ones or the administrative ones. For example, the town of Ugly was in the county of Essex, but the address ended in Hertfordshire.
Which meant there were now 3 interpretations of what county you lived in: historical, administrative, and/or postal.
As the centuries rolled on, the county system went from being confusing to being completely out of date.
After the Industrial Revolution, Britain's new big cities were man-spreading themselves across county borders.
And many county towns were no longer the commercial powerhouses they used to be.
The once mighty city of York had fallen to 5th place in non-existent Yorkshire.
The counties didn't reflect 20th century Britain in any cultural, practical or meaningful sense.
It was time for a complete shake-up.
The year was 1972, a time of optimism and experimentation and the first episode of Rainbow.
The Local Government Act of 1972 was a radical attempt at cleaning up the complicated, outdated counties mess both once and for all.
Brand new metropolitan counties sprang into existence, with modern-sounding names like Merseyside, Greater Manchester, West Midlands and Tyne and Wear.
London, of course, wasn't included in any of this, as they'd already done their own thing 10 years earlier, which Jay has previously discussed on a video he made without me.
At the same time, several traditional counties vanished overnight. It was county carnage.
Huntingdonshire got eaten by Cambridgeshire, Hereford got anded with Worcester, Cumberland, Westmoreland and this lump of Lancashire were all merged and given the horrible new name Cumbria.
And silly little Rutland was sensibly absorbed by Leicestershire.
Chances are nobody would have Battenberged an eyelid at yet another change to Britain's local authorities, but the government made a big mistake.
They messed with Yorkshire.
Yorkshire's borders got a complete medal in creating a new South Yorkshire, which was cheeky, but when the East Riding got taken out of Yorkshire altogether and became part of the new Humberside, that was not on. It was off.
The previously Yorkshirean residents of Hull were not at all keen to be lumped with Grimsby on the other side of the River Humber.
It was a particularly bizarre union given the Humber Bridge connecting the two sides hadn't even been built yet.
There was an anti-Humberside campaign, and even anti-Humberside graffiti.
All this kerfuffle forced the government's hand, and in 1996, Humberside quietly disappeared.
As did other unpopular experiments like Cleveland and Avon.
Hereford and Worcester once again became Hereford and Worcester. Sure. Even ridiculous Rutland regained its status as England's smallest county.
The shake-up of 1972, designed to simplify things, did nothing of the sort, instead marking the beginning of an era where county borders, names and powers have been changing on an ever-increasing basis.
England today has 9 regions comprising 47 ceremonial counties alongside 6 metropolitan counties comprising 36 metropolitan districts, 26 non-metropolitan counties comprising 192 non-metropolitan districts and 56 unitary authorities, not including Greater London, which is a ceremonial county and not a county, comprising 32 boroughs, and the City of London, which is a district and a county and not a ceremonial county, and we haven't even talked about Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland where it's different.
Absolute state of this.
Although it may seem more impossible than ever to tell what and isn't a county, according to this particularly aggressive map publisher,
it's very simple. Our historic counties have never been affected, nor their boundaries changed by the endless shifting of local government boundaries over the past 100 years.
This is a view shared by the increasingly exasperated Association of British Counties, who seek to
give every county a county day, teach counties to school children, fly county flags in every county, stop using the word county for local authorities who are not proper counties.
Fruitcakes. The reality is, unless you live in a county that's particularly unusually proud of itself, like Yorkshire, in general not much of a monkeys is given about the county you live in.
And that might be because it just doesn't really matter. It's not like the USA, where laws vary from one state to the next.
Even Royal Mail doesn't care anymore. Thanks to postcodes, putting a county on your address has been unnecessary since 1996, despite the boxes they make you fill in on Amazon.
But just because they're not important doesn't mean we should forget about them. Present-day knowledge and understanding of English counties is in an abysmal state.
We stopped over 4 people on the street and not a single one of them could faultlessly name every single county in England and its county town.
Well, we think that's a terrible shame, and it's about time something was done about it. Oh, there's Leicestershire, Oxfordshire, Rutland and...
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Sir.
Sir who?
Surfshark is a VPN, an app and browser extension that makes your internet safer by masking your IP address, protecting you from trackers and hackers. It has servers in more than 60 countries, which means you can bypass your country's internet restrictions and experience a fully open global internet.
Sounds pretty nerdy. Not for me, thanks.
It's not nerdy.
Only nerds use acronyms like VPN.
Okay, I'll show you how it's useful without using any acronyms. Let's say you're in a cafe and you're using your laptop using the public Wi-Fi and you're trying to leave a comment on a YouTube video, but it won't let you because the Wi-Fi is restricted.
Wi-Fi is an acronym.
No, it's not. That's a common misconception.
Oh.
Anyway, if you've got Surfshark, then in just 2 clicks you can turn Surfshark on and hey pesto, the internet's fully open like normal. And it's just as fast and reliable as before.
This genuinely happened to me in Starbucks and I was genuinely blown away by how easy it was.
But how do I actually get Surfshark if I'm not a nerd like you? I assume it's on the dark web?
Nope, just click the link in the description and get 83% off plus an extra 3 months for free by using the code MAPMEN.
Looks like there's a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Which basically makes it a free trial. So whether it's for country hopping or making your internet safer or bypassing restricted Wi-Fi to leave YouTube comments in a cafe, Surfshark is really, really good.
This Surfshark thing sounds easier and more up my street than I'd originally assumed.
And that's why you should get Surfshark ASAP. Oops.
Acronym.
Leicestershire, Oxfordshire, Rutland and Warwickshire, Northamptonshire is next door. Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Norfolk and Lincolnshire, Huntingdonshire and there's more, like Suffolk and Essex and Surrey and Sussex and Nottinghamshire in the centre, Devon and Cornwall and Dorset and Somerset, Kent and what comes after Kent? Westmoreland, Cumberland, also Northumberland and County Durham below. There's Lancashire, Gloucestershire, Derbyshire, Cheshire, 11 more counties to go. Shropshire and Staffordshire, Berkshire and Hampshire and Herefordshire next to Wales. There's Hertfordshire, Middlesex, Worcestershire, Wiltshire and Yorkshire with all of the Dales. And Buckinghamshire's the end of the list, there's no need to sing anymore, cause we're not doing Scotland or Wales or new ones invented in 1974.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube. And the YouTube Music app all together. Try 1 month free.
とペンを用意して。さあ、いくよ。丸書いて、お豆が2つ、おむすび1つ、パパッと手足をつけて、あっという間に。神！上手に書けたかな？
I am from Bosnia, take me to America. I really want to see Statue of Liberty. I can no longer wait, take me to United States. Take me to the I will assimilate.
power through at home or on the go. Surprisingly good. Buy now.
Tulong para alaga ang puso, resistensya, mata at buong katawan. Centrum Advance.
Take a spend now, you're in with the 10%. You're going surfing on the internet.
I think this should work. Nice! Looking cool! I gotta show this to Cybermare. Cybermare, can you check my newest page for the Love website, please? Cybermare, please! I need a second opinion. Cybermare. I am before you really like it. It has page about you. Cybermare? Can I have second opinion, please? I want to know what you think. Whoa! No. No. No, 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 no.
What? Hey, what's up? Why are you crying?
It's just this.
YouTube shorts? I mean, yeah, I know that sort of stuff is cringe, but they're weirdly grabbing, I guess.
That's the problem! You don't even like that stuff, and yet it's hypnotizing you into always watching more and more! It hurts to see my friend turning into a zombie.
Yeah, I get what you mean. There's probably a Firefox extension that blocks YouTube shorts anyway. I should get that.
It's not just YouTube Shorts that's the problem. It's all social media. Other sites like Twitter and TikTok are designed to make you scroll forever. They are made to turn peeps into addicts. I don't like it. The internet is bad now!
Wait, what? Aren't you always the first person to shill how the internet's perfect and has no flaws and
The internet was perfect, but very slowly over time, it changed.
Oh, so it's like a Ship of Theseus situation?
I've never heard that ship name before. Is it like a popular OTP from a show or something?
Forget I mentioned that. So you're saying the internet used to be different?
I'll explain, but let me get in a more comfortable and iconic position first. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, the internet was this cool new thing, an infinite space of possibilities. But as time went on, certain websites took more and more traffic. So much traffic that they became an entire planet on their own. They became so massive that they were impossible to ignore. They gained complete dominance on the internet. This huge group of planets is what's called the core web.
Oh, so the monopolistic normie conglomerate. Got it.
As much as the core web would like to have all the attention on itself, the infinite space around the core web still exists. It's called the peripheral web. If you've grown tired of the core web like me, this, right here, is where to look for new websites and experiences. There's a whole movement going on right now about bringing back how fun the old internet used to be. This movement and everything around it goes by many names, and researching was confusing, so let's clarify some stuff. Old web is referring to the old internet between the 90s and 2000s, back when the internet was more wild, diverse, and independent.
I don't know if you can call that environment diverse. It was just nerdy white dudes rich enough to afford the first wave of home computers, especially since they weren't required for anything important.
Yeah, prices and the lack of spread to everyone else made it so it was a much more niche community. But we don't have that problem anymore. The internet is now used by all kinds of peeps all over the globe. It's the perfect time to teach everyone how cool the old web was. Web Revival is the name of the movement to make the internet a healthier place through making your own website, spreading awareness of the dangers of the social media platforms, and reducing your engagement in the core web. The personal web, also known as the independent web, is part of the peripheral web that the Web Revival wants to bring back into attention. Because technically, the peripheral web is everything that's not the core web, aka billions of websites. Anyway, the personal web is where all the cool and epic websites are. Here's an example.
Lamau.
What?
Are you sure this is a website from today and not something you dug up from decades ago? You're not going to convince anyone to join your nostalgia bait movement with this. You just gotta accept there's no way out of the hellhole that is the modern internet.
Grr. FYI, it's not gonna be thanks to grumpy peeps like you if things ever changes. Do you not see the soul in this website? Or in this one? Or this one? All these? Do you not realize the absolute freedom you have when you make your own website? This isn't about nostalgia. It's about bringing back the freedom and originality of the old web with the accessibility of the new web. Do you prefer all those original and experimental websites, or having like 5 social medias that all look the same? Every website that's part of the core web is copying each other now.
DeviantArt? Redesigned with all its unique flavor gone. And Tumblr slowly changed to look more and more like Twitter. It even has a For You page? Why does everything gotta have an algorithm-fueled spoon feeder? Ugh! You have TikTok figuring out how to hypnotize its users, and now every big social media wants a piece of that cake.
Holy f***, I've never seen you like this before. What a breath of fresh air.
At least websites made thanks to the web revival movement are made by people with the heart and love of a human being. Not even social media users are human anymore. All I see on Twitter now is brands trying to pretend they're your friend.
Daily reminder that literally everything brand accounts do on social media is meant to turn you into their customer.
The web is now run by brands and algorithms. It's lost its soul, its humanity. I am not nostalgic. I am outraged.
Damn, and I'm being based. Never thought I'd see it happen. Isn't making a website, like, really hard, though? I feel like it's not gonna appeal to everyone, especially since it costs money to host one. Actually, now would be the perfect opportunity to get sponsored by that website maker. You know, Squarespace.
No. Website makers like those are super limited, and you won't make anything unique. Learning HTML is actually easy and accessible nowadays, and NeoCities is the perfect place to hold your website. The Love website itself is all made with HTML and CSS, and is also hosted on NeoCities. No website maker involved. NeoCities also has a lot of awesome content on it. I invite everyone to browse the websites hosted on it. You don't even have to learn to code and make a website to participate in the web revival movement. You can either be an epic HTML magician creating fantastical websites, or a cool cowgirl boy, exploring the wild west that is the personal web.
Yeah, I think being a cowgirl is more my vibe than being a fucking nerd.
Browsing the personal web is pretty different from the core web though. For example, you can see that a website is part of a web ring, which is a collective of websites all linked together like a ring. Personal websites also tend to have a links page, where the owner is going to link a bunch of websites that they like. There are some search engines to browse all those websites, but the fun of the personal web is getting lost in the web. It's gonna be overwhelming at first to be caught in the web, but it's so exciting to discover cool websites like that. A lot better than having an algorithm spoon feed you content.
Okay, I see what you mean, and it sounds kino and all, but you're not gonna get the core web BTFO just by having a couple hundred people create their own website.
Come on, you're just being grumpy again.
No, I'm being serious. The internet isn't gonna fix itself with this movement. It might provide some escapism for some people, but it isn't some magical other dimension. It exists within the confines of the human world, so it's governed by that world's systems. You know, capitalism. Rich people try to monopolize every industry. Now they're doing it to everyone's internet activity, trying to rule over it so they can make as much money from it as they can. The internet's just a recent, prominent victim. If you want the internet to decentralize, be accessible to everyone, and not be defined by monopolies and big corpos, that's only going to be possible in a world without capitalism. Or at least a world where it's a lot weaker. The problem isn't just the internet or social media. The internet and how bad it is now is only symptomatic of a society shaped by power, money, and exploitation. The internet's an integral part of that society now. It can only change for the better if the broader political landscape changes to be more egalitarian. Maybe if we started... Yo, Manon?
Oh, politics hard. You lost me at capitalism. You gotta remember to keep Love Web simple to understand. This is a show for all ages after all.
Yeah, right. Can't forget about the 14-year-olds who make up most of our audience.
I really hope viewers are going to be interested in the web revival movement and not feel intimidated by it. Wait, I forgot! I wanted to show you something on my own website that I'm making. Look! I made pages all about us!
Not bad. I expected something flashier and more obnoxious. For my description, I think I'll take care of it myself, okay?
Alright! The website is also going to have a dedicated page for web revival and personal websites. I'll have links on there to start your journey into the personal web. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Love Web, and don't forget to support us on Patreon or buy some merch. Anyway, thank you for watching and see you on the personal web. Lol.
Hello everyone. This video is a part of a massive YouTube collaboration called Project Mad, all about the Cold War. In the description is a link to the playlist of every video involved, and I encourage you to watch them all once you're finished with this one. In the meantime, here's the video.
Feeling bloated na naman?
Hello, it's Tatay Atay. Your liver helps build your immunity, and bloatedness can be linked to your liver health. Find out if you're at risk for liver damage. Take the test now. Yung liver mo.
na! Uwian na!
Uwian na! Yes! Uwian na!
Uwian na!
We're home! Espesyal ang pag-uwi, lumalabas sa pagngiti.
Wow!
Butter naman with butter rich and moisture fun.
Cake slices so delicious with filling so luscious.
Hey everyone, Emperor Tiger Star here. So I wasn't really able to make a video this week because I've actually been moving. So yeah, I really haven't had much time. And I promise you the World War II video is probably going to be here next week. Like I said, I've been moving and I've been really busy. So instead for this video, I'm going to just show you this old atlas I have. This is an old school atlas made by National Geographic with McNally, as you'll see on the side. So for those of you who know your maps, then you'll know that's an important name. And this was from, I believe it's the 1880s. I got this several months ago. And it also came with like a weird manual on how to use it. So yeah, so something about made in Iowa. And it also says that it's only 75 cents. So yeah, that's, I mean, I'm sure inflation, that's a bit more than 75 cents, obviously, but that's still pretty good for an atlas. So I just thought I'd just kind of show you the atlas and just show you kind of what it looks like on the inside. It's obviously a little cover, system of geography. You got the fancy little plates. Of course, this is back when you had plates and basically did everything by hand. You know, all the stuff like that. And let's see, what was the precise date? Let's see. Oh, 1868. So it's actually older. So this is just 4 years after the American Civil War. But like I said, this is like a school textbook, so you know there's also like little lessons on the side and like definitions and stuff like that. And so you'll, and you know, has the basic stuff like latitude versus longitude, and then you know, you've got the old-fashioned maps, and it kind of does it by like region at a time. So there are the general hemispheres. You know, there's North America, and this is back when they called Canada British America. And of course, you know, Mexico. And you know, you'll notice that sometimes they're too lazy to show the small countries. So like just Central America. And this is after the Central American Confederation broke up. So that's just why they showed it. They also showed British Honduras or Belize as a part of Mexico. So there's definitely errors in here. Because like I said, you know, this was made by hand. Of course, people just didn't have as much information back then. So, but you know, yeah, so. And there's like a little zoom in on Canada right there, United States. And of course, like I said, this is after, like 4 years after the American Civil War. So like some of the places are still territories. Not all of them are states yet. Of course, you know, general questions on that. And then it's going to kind of go through all the different states and territories real quick. So there they kind of distinguish the countries of Central America a little bit. And then there's the Caribbean. Let's see. Then there's South America, which as you can tell the borders are different because again this is 1868. But you know, I always like these old maps because not only are they hand drawn, but like, you know, you can tell that like, you know, the mountains are like kind of weirdly drawn on there. Sometimes the coloring's going to be off because again that was done by hand. Like those little swirly things around islands just so you can kind of locate where they are and kind of measure distances and stuff like that. And they also weirded like areas that like were uninhabited or not uninhabited, weren't possessed by a country. They'll also kind of give its own color. So it looks like Patagonia is a country, but it's not. You know, all that stuff. Oh, and of course, there's Europe. And of course, look at that wonderful Prussian border. So horribly drawn. And that Portuguese border is kind of weird. But yeah. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, they just call it the Ottoman Empire Turkey still. So that's kind of there. That Portugal looks a lot better. But yeah, and then of course there's a zoom in on the German states, which would include the North German Confederation by this point, but it still kind of shows it as a part of. Yeah, it still kind of shows them separately. All that stuff. And then there's the zoom in on. Yeah, I guess they're just calling the entire North German Confederation Prussia by this point. Wait. Oh, okay. Prussian Poland. I thought it was calling that Poland. That's kind of funny. Then of course you have options there. Yada yada yada. It was really funny is that some of these questions are rather outdated. Like I can't remember where, but like there's one question where it's like, this uncivilized country is located here and is known for exporting rubber and all that stuff. Just kind of funny, like just random tidbits like that. Oh yes, so this is one of my favorite parts. So the horribly labeled Asia. As we kind of get in closer, you'll notice something. So but this is back when spelling was a bit different. So instead of with a U, they just used double O's for everything. That's kind of funny. And you'll notice on the side that India used to be called Hindustan. And again, they're doing it with the double O's instead, which, I just find it really funny. It's like that. Yeah, once again, they're kind of too lazy to label every country. Oh yeah, before this was called Indochina, it was called Farther India, which I always thought was kind of interesting. Oh, and of course there's Africa. It's before the colonization of Africa, so there's not really too many countries other than the colonies along the coast and a few African states up north. And basically because we didn't know about as much of the interior of Africa yet, so any states that were there we just didn't know. So as you can see, they just kind of assumed Ethiopia had all of that. So yeah, I guess back then they thought Ethiopia was that big, which is kind of hilarious actually. Oh wait, no, because there's Abyssinia, which is also named for Ethiopia. So I guess they just use Ethiopia as a general name for the interior of Africa. So yeah. Oh yeah, and the Sahara Great Desert instead of just Sahara Desert. Of course, and then of course there's what's left. The Pacific also hasn't quite been colonized yet, except for Australia and New Zealand. So they just kind of called all of that Polynesia. They didn't have a separate Micronesia yet. So yeah, and then let's see. There's kind of more questions. Yes, and then there's a map of the world. But yeah, so basically that's pretty much it. Just kind of a few more world maps, and then old statistics on the back, where this was back when the United States only had 30 million people, which is a little bit smaller than Canada today, and all that stuff. And then oh yeah, cities. So let's see. That's by state. Capital, countries, capital. Oh well. Anywho, yeah, so just statistics in the back, and there's the very old binding, and that's what the back looks like with the stain that was there when I got it. But yeah, so I thought this is a really cool atlas, and again, sorry I couldn't have a video this week, but I've just been super busy. I promise World War II comes next week, but I just kind of wanted to show you this old atlas that I've had for a while. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.
summer flavors ng Select and Limited Edition Cocoa Mango. This summer lang yan!
Hello, friends. What is something to make it better?
I'm going to ask you this only once. Do you, or do you not, know about the bird?
Well, class, are you ready for your lessons?
Yes, Miss Flamille.
Very well then, let's begin. Today's categories are astrophysics, Chaucer, Latin, nuclear fission, TV movies, and the United States. And please remember, students, your responses must be in the form of a question. Yakko, you're the reigning champion, so please select.
Okay, I'll take TV movies for 100.
She has made even more TV movies than Lindsay Wagner. Wacko?
Who is Valerie Bertinelli?
That is correct. Select again.
Okay, I'll take the United States for 500.
The Daily Double. Wacko, you can wager all or part of your money.
I'll blow the wad.
All right, then. In the category of the United States, the answer is the names of all 50 states and their capitals.
Okay. Here goes. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio. There's Montgomery, Alabama, south of Helena, Montana. Then there's Denver, Colorado, under Boise, Idaho. Texas has Austin, then we go north to Massachusetts, Boston, and Albany, New York. Tallahassee, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Nashville, Tennessee. Elvis used to hang out there a lot, you know. Trenton's in New Jersey, north of Jefferson, Missouri. You got Richmond in Virginia, South Dakota has Pierre. Harrisburg's in Pennsylvania, and Augusta's up in Maine. And here is Providence, Rhode Island, next to Dover, Delaware. Concord, New Hampshire, just a quick jaunt to Montpelier, which is up in Vermont. Hartford's in Connecticut, so pretty in the fall. And Kansas has Topeka, Minnesota has St. Paul. Juneau's in Alaska, and there's Lincoln in Nebraska, and it's Raleigh out in North Carolina, and then there's Madison, Wisconsin, and Olympia in Washington, Phoenix, Arizona, and Lansing, Michigan. Here's Honolulu, Hawaii's a joy, Jackson, Mississippi, and Springfield, Illinois, South Carolina with Columbia down the way, and Annapolis in Maryland on Chesapeake Bay. They have wonderful clam chowder. Cheyenne is in Wyoming, and perhaps you make your home in Salt Lake City out in Utah where the buffalo roam. Atlanta's down in Georgia, and there's Bismarck, North Dakota, and you can live in Frankfurt in your old Kentucky home. Salem in Oregon, from there we join. Little Rock in Arkansas, Iowa's got Des Moines, Sacramento, California, Oklahoma and its city, Charleston, West Virginia, and Nevada, Carson City. That's all the capitals there are. Huh?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You failed to put your response in the form of a question.
Chunky! He's dead.
Cheesecake! Chunky's dead! Cheesecake!
Hello? Who's there?
Good evening. Across the nation, people are falling prey to an unknown illness inexplicably linked with the popular video game character, Crash Bandicoot. Spreading across the east and west coasts, experts say that an estimated 40% of the population has already been infected with severe Crash Bandicoot-itis. We'll now go to Dave, who's standing by live at the scene.
From era to era to era, the fun goes on. Shakey's 50 years.
Para sa negosyo, Mitsubishi L300 pa rin.
It begins with a spark. Billions of humans seeking, exploring, pushing boundaries. We destroy, but we create. We fail, but we grow. We lose our way, but we discover. We're always moving. Connecting. Start a conversation. Ignite curiosity. Launch a journey. OER Project. Find your spark, inspire others.
Yeah, Fortnite bug. Yeah. Yeah, Fortnite balls all in your face. Hey. Fortnite balls all.
All right, yeah, that's a pretty good job.
You've done me proud, boys.
You're doing good, lad. You did well.
Nice job, partner.
Amazing, camarade.
Good one, mate.
You have done well.
Once we filled a job, the contracts need to be signed by both parties. With Adobe Acrobat, I can send it to the candidate and the client for signing and be notified when the contract is complete. It's such a speedy turnaround.
this anyway? Oh, what? You think this is fun? You gotta be cuckoo crazy. You want fun? Mario show you fun. Isn't that great, huh? So you like that, eh? Oh, watch this. This is even better. Ladies and gentlemen, sit down and shut up. It's time for the show. So grab your chair and sit down. You got no chair. It's time for big times presentation. And say, put your hands together and say, hooray!
Stuffed in your face as usual.
I gotta have a good meal.
Garfield, you fat cat. You are so big and fat. Why are you so fat?
I eat, John. It's what I do. It's time to kiddo the off the table.
Don't do it, Garfield. That's our pet dog, Odie.
You're going into orbit, you stupid muff.
Garfield.
Time for a nap. I'm a cat who loves to snooze.
Garfield lazy cat.
I hate alarm clocks. I'm damn hungry, I want some lasagna.
You're eating us out of house and home.
Garfield. Enough with the chit-chat, let's get some grub going.
Where are the 3 cheese pizzas?
I ate just food.
Where are the taco shells?
I ate just food.
Where did all the hamburger helper go? You're such a bad kitty. That's it. I had it with you. That does it. I'm done. That's the last straw, Garfield.
Oh, these are pretty cool bananas.
Stretch that moment with Cloud9. Enjoy that Cloud9 moment.
그로잼 상탐수빛
Tulong para alaga ang puso, resistensya, mata at buong katawan. Centrum Advance.
Galing niya, oh!
Kaya ko din yan eh.
Tara, Valo.
Let's start with the strange and slowly work our way towards the most horrifying things on the list. Number 10. The Four Thieves Vinegar. So legend has it that a group of 4 thieves would loot and ransack the homes of people who had recently died from the plague. They would go on to steal from dozens of victims without any of them ever getting sick. They stayed safe by rubbing a secret potion over their entire bodies. But eventually, these thieves would be caught and apprehended by the authorities. They were then offered their freedom in exchange for the recipe of this secret potion, which they revealed to be a mixture of vinegar, garlic, herbs, and spices. No one knows for certain if this story is true, but this was a very popular tale during this time period. This would lead merchants to go door to door selling this vinegar mixture as a preventative for the plague. Buyers were instructed to rub this potion on their hands, ears, and temple. But if the merchant had them hook, line, and sinker, he would simply just tell them to lather it over their entire bodies, since everyone knows the number one rule in sales is always upsell when you can. And surprisingly, this potion would work really well against the bubonic plague, thanks to the mixture containing the herb mugwort, which is a natural bug repellent. And since the bubonic plague was spread from the fleas of infected rodents, this would prove to be one of the very few remedies that actually worked. But sadly, fleas were not the only way of contracting the Black Plague, the second method being much more deadly and was most commonly spread from human to human. This would be known as the pneumonic plague, which often carried a 100% mortality rate. This form usually spreads when a person inhales the airborne droplets of an infected person, which caused the disease to infect the lungs. And of course, the potion would prove to be completely useless against this form of infection. Number 9. Quack doctors. Throughout history, when the Black Plague would break out, those with financial means would flee from cities and escape to the countryside. This would of course include the majority of the city's doctors, leaving behind a massive and lucrative market for quacks, where they would post up on city corners selling powders, potions, magical cures, and anything else that they could think of. They would yell at the top of their lungs at people walking by, letting them know that they were selling the latest and greatest cures or preventatives for the plague or any other ailments. Are you in search for the best preventative for the plague? Then you need to be eating unicorn horn powder. What the hell are you doing? Have a stomach ache? Oh, that's the first sign of the plague. So drink this fermented potion. Tastes terrible, shut up and drink it. Don't you want to feel better? Of course you do. Feeling ill? Eat a baby foot. Have a headache? Place this magical stone under your bed, sniff the squirrel hide, cover yourself in salmon oil, and jump into your neighbor's bath. You will be feeling better by tomorrow, but if for some reason, by some miracle, my 100% guaranteed remedy doesn't work, come back for a full refund after 10 days of your initial first symptoms. Now, here's a list of some of the most common items that a quack doctor would sell throughout history, just so you can get an idea of how scummy these guys really were. Snake oil, of course. Chill and fever tonic. Miracle elixirs that cured pretty much everything. Ointments that would cure baldness. But my favorite one, a tincture that would restore life in the event of sudden death. And since these quacks sold whatever they wanted, we can only assume that there's probably hundreds of other items that were never documented. Number 8. Urine. Back during the medieval period, urine had a great reputation since it was thought to have cleansing and healing properties, so naturally it would be used as a form of treatment for the plague. Finally, a remedy I can afford. Anyone infected with the disease was encouraged to take a bath with clean urine to relieve some of their painful symptoms. The urine would be collected from healthy people and sold to the sick, where it was then added to their bathwater, or better yet, consumed directly from the glass. But if I was alive during this time period, I for one could never bring myself to partake in such a disgusting and humiliating practice. Buying from a middleman. Since I always say drinks are at their best straight from the faucet. Number 7. Miasma theory. One of the most popular theories at this time was that the plague was contracted by inhaling bad air, or simply put, bad odors. The long list of these bad smells included organic and human waste, decaying flesh, contaminated water, and of course, the Dutch oven, which was a guaranteed way to be put on trial for attempted murder. Bad smells were believed to carry contaminated air, which once inhaled would lead to illness. The public was encouraged to carry around flowers, rose petals, or herbs, which they would oftentimes hold to their nostrils, since they believed that the sweet smell would cancel out the bad air. This is one of the reasons plague doctors would wear these terrifying masks, since the beak would be filled with flowers and spices, which they believed helped keep the disease at bay. But of course, these wonderful smells did absolutely nothing in preventing people from catching the plague. If anything, it just gave people a false sense of security. Number 6. Leeches. Leeches were commonly used by the wealthy as a form of bloodletting, and was relatively painless considering what the alternative was, but more on that one later. Bloodletting is when blood is drained from a patient, usually from an incision or leeches. Here, the leeches would be placed on a person's body, while they kick back, relax, and let the leeches go to town. The theory behind this was that the leeches would suck out the bad blood, which was thought to cause illness. But the irony being that the leech's bite was the thing that could make them ill, since it always carried the chance of developing an infection. Now, originally I didn't think this whole leech operation sounded too bad, until I saw the diagram for the most common locations for bloodletting. Number 5. The Vicary method. The Vicary method was named after Thomas Vicary, the English doctor who invented the technique, and this would become one of the most popular cures during the plague. This first begins with a healthy chicken having its bottom plucked clean. The chicken's back door is then placed directly on a sick person's buboes and strapped down to keep it in place. The logic behind this was based on the belief that chickens breathe through their back door, so in theory, it would suck out and absorb the sickness from the person. And if the chicken contracts the plague from the human and begins to show signs of illness, people would oftentimes take this as a sign that the remedy was working. If the chicken happens to die before the human, another chicken simply takes its place. Now, I can only speculate since there isn't much written on the subject, but this seems like a sure way to get an infection. You see, buboes would oftentimes grow so large that they would rupture, and a chicken's bottom attached to an open wound just seems like the best way to get your admission ticket to the afterlife. Number 4. Flagellation. In Europe, during the medieval period, religion was deeply ingrained into all aspects of life. So naturally, people began to believe that the Black Plague was simply a punishment from God for their sins. Soon, groups of people began to gather and walk the streets while vigorously whipping themselves as a public display of repentance. While I, for one, prefer to keep this kink at home. But to each their own. These groups of people would use leather whips with knotted tails, but some show-offs would take it a step further by adding nails to their whips. These flagellant groups would recruit others when they would slowly walk from town to town, whipping their own backs and carrying crosses. They would do this act multiple times a day. But the real tragedy would come when one of these individuals would be infected with the plague, since they were left to fight an uphill battle with an already deadly disease. And having a weak body that was severely cut up from the self-inflicted wounds definitely didn't help. Number 3. Feces. As time went on, physicians began to try all sorts of bizarre methods in the hopes of finding a cure, with this special paste being one of them. The paste consisted of tree resin, flower roots, and human poop. This operation would first begin with the patient's buboes getting sliced open, and as soon as the incision was made, it would then be stuffed with the paste, then tightly wrapped and sealed to hold everything in place. Patients would then be instructed to get some bed rest and wait. Now, if the patient's body part had not fallen off by the following morning, they would for sure be left fighting a losing battle, since it had now turned into a 2v1 with the person fighting against the plague and the infection. Number 2. Bloodletting. This was an extremely popular medical procedure that was used from ancient times all the way through the late 19th century. This procedure was in fact so popular that during the medieval period, this would oftentimes be the first thing a doctor would recommend. This absolute nightmare would first start with a person getting their arm sliced open and allowing the blood to drain into a bowl. Now, if a cut on the arm made you uncomfortable, don't worry, since you always had the option to have the incision made on your neck instead. Now, the instruments that were used to slice patients open looked like this, but just covered in blood from the previous patient. Since being sanitary wasn't much of a concern during this time period, which of course would cause many patients to die from infection. But one of the most concerning things about this procedure was the amount of blood that would be drained, since it was common practice to increase the amount drained based on the severity of the person's sickness. Have a headache? That's 2 teaspoons. A fever? That's 16 ounces. A crippling social anxiety that prevents you from enjoying social gatherings? Yup, that one is about a gallon. Now, surprisingly, doctors were not usually the person to perform bloodletting and was actually a task left for barbers, since they were a lot more skilled in handling razors. This is the reason why they began to place the red stripe on the barber pole outside of the building, since it would let the public know that surgery was performed inside. Barbers would also pull teeth, amputate limbs, and make holes in people's heads. Number 1. Extermination. Now, this would easily be the most extreme measure taken during the medieval period in the attempt to stop the plague. One of the groups that was heavily targeted were the Jewish. This would first start when the rumors began to circulate that the Jews had intentionally poisoned the drinking wells. So on September of 1348, a group of Jews would be taken as prisoners to Chillon Castle on Lake Geneva. There, they were brutally tortured until one of them would finally confess to poisoning the drinking water, which of course was not true. The information of this confession was then sent to various cities in Germany, and once the news arrived, it began to spread like wildfire throughout many countries in Europe. And thousands of Jews would then be targeted and murdered for this false confession. It was even documented that Jews from the age of 7 and up were all considered guilty for this crime, since the belief was that they all had previous knowledge of this plan. Even though the Jewish community was clearly suffering as they themselves were being decimated by the plague, but this wouldn't seem to matter to the general public, and the killings would tragically continue. And it wouldn't be until the spread of the plague began to slow down that the murders would too. Let's start with the dangerous and slowly work our way towards the deadliest ones on the list. Number 6. The Death Pit. The Veryovkina Cave, also known as the Death Pit, is located in Georgia and is the deepest known cave on the planet, extending 2,209 meters. For reference, it could fit around 24 Statues of Liberty inside, or for my European audience, 7 Eiffel Towers, and for the rest of the world, 31,680 Big Macs. There has only been one recorded fatality inside of the cave, but don't let that number fool you. This is one of the most dangerous caves on the planet. As you begin your journey, you will be presented with your first challenge: finding it. Since the entrance to the cave is a small 3x4 meter opening in the middle of nowhere. Once you found the entrance, there will be no warm-up, as you will begin by rappelling down a pitch black vertical drop. But this is just the beginning, as there will be many vertical drops that will continue to take you deeper and deeper into the complex cave system. And as you continue to work your way down, the temperatures will very quickly drop to near freezing, and humidity will skyrocket to 100%, making the limestone walls and floors extremely slippery, adding some much needed comedic relief. But as you work your way from camp 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally 5, you will have to rappel through freezing waterfalls, squeeze through multiple narrow, twisting tunnels that are barely the size of a human body, and walk through chest-deep, freezing waters. But after 4 days of descending and pure agony, you finally make it to the bottom of the cave, where your guide will take a small sample of dirt, pat you on the back, and instruct you to turn back around, since they got what they came for. Number 5. The Deep Abyss. Krubera Cave is currently the second deepest cave on Earth, but its true size remains unknown, since no one has ever reached its end. The cave has claimed the lives of a few people throughout the years, with the most recent death taking place in 2020. Your journey will once again begin with a Where's Waldo type of game, since you're looking for a small entrance hiding in the vast mountain region of Georgia. Now, there are no official dimensions online about the size of the entrance, but if we take a look at this picture of Rui Chenet standing in it, and Google Chenet's height, which is 5'11", we can easily calculate that the entrance is about 1¼ Rui Chenets in length. Once you're strapped in, you will begin to rappel into the pitch black cave, connecting from line to line, descending for hours on end. One mistake here could cost you your life, sending you free falling past all of your buddies, and ruining the trip. While rappelling down, you will not only be stressed from the descent, but you'll also be in constant fear of overhead rocks falling on your head, since there are many loose rocks. There are 5 camps throughout the cave, all spread 8 hours apart, taking a total of 5 days down and 5 days up to complete. Along the way, you will encounter very tight squeezes that will take all the muscles in your body to get through, slippery limestone walls and floors, and you'll cross the bodies of explorers who once attempted exactly what you are doing now. All this before you even reach Camp 1. From Camp 1 to Camp 5 will be more of the same. Descending in pure darkness, near freezing temperatures, and fighting off extreme exhaustion. But eventually, you will encounter one of the most dangerous parts of the cave. One of the many siphons. These are underwater tunnels that you must swim through on a single breath. A miscalculation here, or losing the guideline, will easily cost you your life. But after 5 days of descending, if you are one of the lucky few to ever go past Camp 5, you will be greeted with a section called the 2 Captain Siphon, which is a complete waste of time, since it's completely OP and remains uncharted territory to this day. Number 4. The Cave of Death. The Cave of Death and the Drowning Trap are the nicknames given to the Gouffre Burger Cave in France, one of the deadliest and deepest caves on the planet. Now, at first glance, the cave looks absolutely beautiful, but after turning down the brightness and removing the beauty filter, yeah, just like I thought, it's a complete dump. The cave has a depth of over 1,200 meters, and in recent years has claimed the lives of 6 people. Now, thankfully this time around you will begin your journey well rested, waking up at a nearby hotel of your choice, since the cave is conveniently located near a city. Your journey begins with a traditional French breakfast, an order of French toast, French fries, and a croissant. Then, it's time to get to work. You will begin by rappelling down a vertical 30-meter descent into the dark cave. But again, this is just the beginning, as the cave will spam vertical descents back to back to back, taking all the fun out of it. But after descending for around 6 hours, you will reach the largest section of the cave, a very long and slowly descending labyrinth. A wrong turn here could easily be your last. Here, you will face some of the most difficult sections, from long wall climbs, crossing lakes, and rappelling down slippery waterfalls. An injury here, you guessed it, will force your friends to put you down. But if you're one of the lucky few who manages to descend around 30 hours, you will have reached the final section of the cave, a section called the Terminal Sumps, a DLC add-on that was discovered in the 1950s, requiring diving gear to access. To this day, this large underwater section hasn't been fully mapped out due to its strong currents, low visibility, and freezing cold temperatures. Number 3. Jacob's Well. Imagine maining the most universally hated and worst type of level, water levels. Jacob's Well is a popular swim hole located a few miles away from Austin, Texas. The cave has taken the lives of at least 9 divers in recent years, with some of their bodies remaining inside of the cave to this day. If for some strange reason you chose underwater cave exploring as a hobby, your journey will begin with a vertical descent into the cave. Soon you will realize that the cave is slowly narrowing, leading you to a section called the Restriction, which is a long and confined passage. In fact, it's so tight that divers must mount their air tanks at their sides, instead of the usual back position, just to squeeze through. Now, thankfully we have all done this one once before, so experience should play a factor. The following section is terrifying since it looks the same in either direction. So if you lose focus or get disoriented, even for a second, you could lose track of which way you came from and where you were going, putting you in a deadly situation where you could believe that you're heading out of the cave when in fact, you're going deeper into the system. But if you are lucky enough to stay focused and continue in the correct direction, you will eventually reach the next section, the shallows, a narrow and confined area where you must be careful not to stir up the silt-covered floors, as doing so will instantly cause the water to become extremely murky, reducing visibility to zero, which is the exact thing that has happened to many divers inside the cave, causing them to lose the guideline and eventually run out of air as they were attempting to find their way out. But for the divers that make it to the final and deepest known section called the unknown, they will have to turn back around if they want to live, since this area has zero visibility, is extremely narrow, and has a strong underwater current. To this day, no one has ever gone past this point, and Jacob's Well's true depth remains a complete mystery. Number 2. The Mount Everest of cave diving. The Mount Everest of cave diving is the nickname given to the Eagle's Nest Cave in Florida, the second deadliest cave on the planet. There have been at least 13 confirmed fatalities here in recent years, but from the outside looking in, it actually appears to be a decent swim hole, if it weren't, you know, Florida. Your deadly adventure begins with a vertical descent into the cave, but very quickly you'll encounter your first challenge, a section called the chimney, a tight squeeze where you must be extremely careful not to snag the hoses to your air tanks, causing them to disconnect. Once you pass through, you'll enter the entrance room, a large open area that splits into 2 tunnel systems, but for the sake of the video, you will head towards the deepest and deadliest section of the cave. Here, you will be greeted with this infamous sign, warning you to stop and turn back around to prevent your own death. You continue since this message is obviously for someone else. As you push deeper into the complex cave system with your underwater scooter, you'll soon come across the most dangerous section, one that has claimed many lives, a passage called the Pit. This tight and confined area requires divers to carefully squeeze and twist through without damaging their gear. It's not uncommon for divers to take multiple attempts to successfully pass through. Now would also be a good time to mention a deadly condition that's claimed the lives of dozens, if not hundreds of divers, nitrogen narcosis. It's caused by the increased absorption of nitrogen while under pressure and makes the divers feel intoxicated, similar to being drunk. So you're probably thinking, cave diving is actually beginning to not sound so bad. What's the issue? Well, when people are drunk, they tend to make bad decisions, like taking unnecessary risks, losing track of time, and becoming uncoordinated. Now, of course, that shouldn't be a problem for you, since you were never coordinated to begin with. But again, for the sake of the video, let's say you manage to squeeze and twist through this deadly section. You'll now move past maze-like narrow passages, carefully avoiding not to disturb the silt-covered floors, because doing so could easily become a death sentence, causing you to lose visibility and all hopes of finding your way back out. But if by some miracle you manage to descend over 300 feet to the deepest known section of the cave, known as the Room of Dreams, well, you can be proud of the fact that you are one of the very few people on Earth to have ever laid eyes on it. The cave continues beyond this point, but no one has explored further due to depth pressure, visibility issues, and technical challenges. Number 1. Ginny Springs. Ginny Springs in Florida has everything you could ever want. Warm weather, crystal clear and warm waters, food, campgrounds, parties, and unlimited booze. But underneath the floating beer pong tables lies one of the most intricate and deadly cave systems on the planet, which has claimed the lives of at least 28 divers. I mean, the names of the dive sites should tell you everything you need to know. The Devil's Cave System, the Devil's Ear, the Devil's Eye, Little Devil. You get it. They even added this terrifying mascot at the top of their official map, just in case you were beginning to feel confident. As you can see from the map, getting lost in this underwater maze would be a death sentence, as it has been for many divers throughout the years. Now, what makes this cave different from the rest of the caves on the list is that there are many entrance points. Think of the other caves on the list like a linear video game, progressing through the level from start to finish, while Ginny Springs cave system is more like an open world game, allowing you to start and go wherever you want at any given time. Now, I will admit, the cave is beautiful, which can't be said for most of the others on the list. But its beauty adds to its horror. Let me explain. The water in the cave is crystal clear, which lures divers into a false sense of security. And with that misguided confidence, divers tend to swim deeper into the system, diving far beyond their skill level, a very common and fatal mistake. But not only will you have to worry about getting lost in its labyrinth, you'll also have to memorize the map from the position you chose to start from, as well as memorizing the direction of the currents in the tunnels, since they can easily take you on a shortcut across the entire map, spawning you in a section where you are incredibly underpowered. But let's quickly cover the most common ways people have lost their lives in this cave. Many divers have gotten stuck in sections where they knew the way out, but didn't have the strength to swim against the current, causing them to eventually run out of air. A few divers have also gotten lost in the cave system, since they failed to set up a guideline, making it nearly impossible to retrace their steps. As well as many divers who simply became disoriented and got lost in the cave, only for their bodies to be discovered in the following days. There are countless divers who lost their lives due to mixing the wrong air mixture in their tanks, which led to oxygen toxicity, hypoxia, nitrogen narcosis, and carbon dioxide buildup. For anyone planning to visit the swim hole, my only word of advice would be to admire the cave from afar. That way, if you do black out, at least you'll still be alive to regret it.
Great combination ng cracker, cream, at wafer.
Corned beef, great combination!
Let's start with the worthless and slowly work our way towards the most terrifying ones on the list. Number 10. Magical rings. Kimball's anti-rheumatic ring was one of the most popular items sold by quack doctors from 1883 to around 1910. The ring was advertised to cure many ailments and diseases by quickening the circulation of blood and dissolving acid crystals in the body, which were believed to cause illness. Now, equipping a ring and expecting it to give you +5 vitality is just ridiculous. If they had only equipped a rabbit's foot, they might have actually found something useful. Quack doctors even claimed that it was the same ring that the royal family wore to stay healthy. The magical ring sold so well in the US and the UK that many other rings began to be sold claiming to cure anything under the sun. Of course, the ring was nothing special and was nothing more than a placebo. Number 9. Snake oil. Snake oil gained popularity in the US during the mid-1800s, when Chinese laborers were spotted rubbing the oil on their bodies during the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. And once Americans tried the traditional Chinese medicine for themselves, word of the magical medicine quickly spread throughout the country. The oil was made from the fat of the Chinese water snake, a snake native to Asia, and thanks to its high content of omega-3 fatty acids, it worked well as an anti-inflammatory. But as snake oil's popularity skyrocketed, supplies could not meet demand. So a man named Clark Stanley began mass-producing snake oil, but instead used the fat of rattlesnakes since it was widely available. He traveled the US on his wagon selling the oil as a cure-all magical elixir, claiming that it would instantly cure pains, aches, sprains, swelling, bruises, sore throat, frostbite, animal bites, and of course, numerous diseases. But by the time the unlucky buyer realized that the oil was nothing more than a scam, quack doctors like Stanley had already moved on to the next town. But here's the crazy part. Clark Stanley was so successful in selling his snake oil that he began to mass produce the oil in many factories throughout the country, selling it in stores and in catalogs, making him incredibly wealthy. And after selling his oil for over 20 years, in 1917, the Bureau of Chemistry discovered that Stanley's snake oil didn't actually contain any snake oil at all, and the infamous term snake oil salesman was born. Number 8. Mummy powder. Perhaps one of the most disturbing items ever sold by quack doctors was mumia, better known as mummy powder. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Mumia is a fine powder made from the ground up remains of mummies. It was used as a form of medicine from the 12th to the 18th century and was widely popular in European countries. Quack doctors sold this as a cure-all medicine, claiming it could act as a blood thinner, painkiller, cough suppressant, anti-inflammatory, cure diseases, aid in wound healing, or really just about anything as long as it got the sell. But here's the terrifying part. The most common way that mummy powder was used was to actually eat it, either by mixing it with water, wine, or food, or by simply eating it raw. Mumia became so popular that the supplies of mummies in Egypt began to run extremely low. So Egyptians began to scam Europeans by selling them ground up remains of people who had recently died and passing it off as mummy powder. It wouldn't be until the 18th century that physicians realized that the powder was completely useless and dangerous, which finally led to its discontinuation. Number 7. Dr. Kilmer's swamp root. Dr. Kilmer was an infamous quack doctor who sold his uncle's miracle cure known as Dr. Kilmer's swamp root from 1878 to 1906. The miracle elixir was sold as a cure for many ailments related to the kidneys, liver, and bladder. Oh, and for some reason, it also cured hangovers. The miracle elixir was heavily advertised in newspapers and magazines, but the best tactic used was when Dr. Kilmer encouraged consumers to mail in their urine for a free medical analysis, resulted in the majority of people being diagnosed with an ailment that could only be cured with Dr. Kilmer's swamp root. Swamp root became so popular in the United States that it would become a common household name, making Dr. Kilmer a multi-millionaire. On one occasion, Dr. Kilmer was asked what swamp root was good for, to which he replied, making $1 million a year. It was later discovered that the ingredients in swamp root were just alcohol mixed with herbs and spices, which is quite ironic, since the miracle medicine was meant to improve your life, not cause you to get into an argument with your wife, storm out of the house, angrily drive away in the car, get pulled over, obviously let go, argue with your wife some more, and angrily state that you can stop drinking swamp root whenever you'd like. Only for the children woken from their sleep to walk in. Realizing this, you go for a hug to comfort them, but they flinch in fear and run to their mom, as she yells once more, telling you that you are ruining the family as she storms off upstairs with the children, which of course leaves you feeling horrible and ashamed. A feeling that could only be cured with swamp root. Number 6. Asthma cigarettes. Asthma cigarettes were a popular remedy sold primarily in Europe and the US from the early 1800s to the 1950s. They were sold by merchants and quack doctors and were advertised as an effective treatment for any respiratory ailments. This included all diseases relating to the throat and lungs, asthma, hay fever, the common cold, and even getting rid of bad breath. Now, the truly terrifying part was the ingredients inside the cigarettes. They commonly contain belladonna and stramonium, two highly toxic and poisonous plants that were believed to relax the airways. The truth was that smoking the cigarettes could lead to many respiratory conditions and often cause confusion, delirium, and hallucinations. Now, thankfully, smoking these cigarettes during an asthma attack did provide some relief. Well, at least through the eyes of the smoker. Number 5. Coca remedies. There were many miracle elixirs, tonics, and medicines that claimed to cure many ailments and diseases, where the main ingredient was cocaine. So let's take a look at some of the most popular ones that were sold by quack doctors, beginning with toothache drops. These miracle drops claimed to be an instantaneous cure for toothaches in adults and children, which of course was very effective, but eventually required more and more drops to get the same effect. Then there were Allen's tablets, a remedy that claimed to instantaneously cure head and chest congestion. But the best part was that it was advertised to cure nervousness and sleeplessness, not by allowing you to sleep, but by making you forget about sleep altogether. Vin Mariani Coca wine. This one was so popular that it was even endorsed by Pope Leo XIII, who was known to carry a small flask of the wine on him. He's also the most productive pope of all time, so there's that. Then of course, we can't move on without talking about Coca-Cola. Originally marketed as a medical tonic and advertised as a remedy for various ailments, such as headaches, exhaustion, and anxiety. Number 4. Opium medicine. Just like the last entry on the list, there are way too many medicines that were sold to list here, so I'll just cover the most popular ones. Beginning with the self-proclaimed most powerful medicine ever discovered for colds, Dr. Bateman's pectoral drops. These were a popular medicine advertised to cure ailments related to the chest or lungs, such as colds, coughs, and bronchitis. The main ingredient here was opium, a strong, dangerous, and highly addictive sedative. Then there was Miss Winslow's soothing syrup, a medicine that was sold as a remedy for sleepless children and those suffering from toothaches, giving little Tommy a great night's sleep. Or probably a little Chucky doll if he didn't get his syrup. Godfrey's cordial was another medicine sold for restless children and toddlers. This medicine was so popular and widely abused that mothers would give it to their children to put them to sleep, allowing them to work uninterrupted. Now, the sad part is that throughout the years, this medicine actually killed many children due to its high opium content. Laudanum was yet another miracle elixir said to cure various ailments, including pain, coughs, insomnia, and teething infants, and was sold by many companies, making it very cheap and widely available. Sold from the 16th through the 20th century, it claimed and ruined many lives due to addiction and overdoses. Number 3. Arsenic products. Today, we all know that arsenic is highly toxic and can lead to arsenic poisoning. But before this was widely known, quack doctors sold many cosmetic products that contained high levels of arsenic. So let's take a look at two of the most popular ones. Arsenic soap was advertised to give anyone the perfect skin complexion and quickly fix and cure any unfavorable skin conditions, including acne and psoriasis. Arsenic wafers were another product advertised to lighten skin color and give clear and beautiful skin, free of pimples, freckles, and imperfections. Now, the reason why these products were so dangerous was due to the very slow poisoning effects of arsenic. You see, symptoms appeared and worsened over time. The process could take months or even years, leaving the person confused and uncertain about what is causing their symptoms. In many cases, this eventually led to a range of health issues like organ damage, neurological problems, and increased risk of cancer. Number 2. Mercury products. Calomel is a white, odorless solid that contains mercury, a highly toxic metal for humans. It was advertised as a miracle cure from the 16th through the 20th century. There were many products that used calomel, so I'll just cover the most popular ones. Dr. Livingston's Rousers were a pill mixture containing calomel, marketed and sold for 40 years as a preventative and cure for malaria. And to be fair, it was quite effective against malaria, but also very toxic. Steedman's soothing powder was a very popular medicine that was given to babies who were teething. It worked quickly to stop babies from crying, since it was poisoning them. Prolonged use led to severe forms of mercury poisoning, which could lead to pink disease, slow development, and nerve damage. But in severe cases, it was outright fatal. Blue Mass was a mercury tablet advertised to treat a variety of conditions, including constipation, depression, and tuberculosis. It is well known that President Abraham Lincoln would regularly take these pills, which could explain his outbursts of anger, insomnia, and tremors, all signs of mercury poisoning. Then there were calomel pills, another miracle product that was very similar to Blue Mass, just marketed to cure liver problems, syphilis, and digestive issues. Of course, like Blue Mass, it had zero benefits and only caused mercury poisoning or worse. Number 1. Radioactive products. The deadliest and most terrifying miracle medicine ever sold has to be radioactive water. Radium water was all the hype in 1924 through 1930, selling over 400,000 bottles. Sellers claimed that the deadly water could cure all sorts of ailments, including arthritis, flatulence, and get this, poisoning. Now, the most famous and disturbing case related to this product involved a man named Eben Byers, a wealthy industrialist who regularly consumed the radioactive water. But after consuming it for several years, in 1930, he began to lose his teeth. Soon, his jaw began to disintegrate and holes formed on his skull. And in 1932, he finally died from radiation poisoning, a slow and painful process. But here's where things get even darker. Radioactive water was not the only deadly product on the market. There were radioactive suppositories, which of course, were administered through a person's back door. Then there were Arium radium tablets, which were radioactive pills that were advertised to give Superman powers. Yep, that one would have got me. Then there were dozens of cosmetic products that were incredibly deadly, from radioactive toothpaste, face creams, lipsticks, and powders. But after many decades on the market, around 1950s, countries began to regulate these deadly products and discontinue them. I guess in the end, it turns out that humans will try just about anything in our endless search for health and beauty. Anything but actually going to the gym.
Sa CDO Carne Norte, ang daming pwedeng lutuin. Kaya sarap sulit-ulitin.
Let's start with the smaller incidents and slowly work our way towards the largest nuclear disasters on the list. Number 8. The SL-1 reactor explosion. On January 3rd, 1961, at the National Reactor Testing Station near Idaho Falls, Idaho, a deadly radioactive explosion occurred, killing 3 men. It all began at 9 p.m. 3 military operators were on duty at the United States Army Experimental Nuclear Reactor, known as SL-1. When one of the men pulled out the reactor's central control rod, it caused the reactor to go from fully shut down to prompt critical. You see, when the control rods are inserted into a nuclear reactor, they absorb the majority of neutrons, completely stopping the nuclear chain reaction. The more the rods are removed, the fewer neutrons are absorbed, and the rate of fission reaction increases, creating more and more energy. I guess you can think of the control rods as the gas pedal to the nuclear reactor. So when one of the men completely removed the central control rod, it caused the reactor to produce so much energy that the water inside of the reactor began to overheat and expand, venting radioactive steam from the top of the reactor vessel. A few moments later, the vessel violently exploded. One man was thrown into the air and impaled and pinned to the ceiling, while the other 2 men were fatally injured by the blast. Now, thankfully, the majority of the radiation from the explosion was contained inside of the building, which made cleaning up the disaster a lot easier. However, it still took about 14 months to fully decontaminate the area, with all the radioactive material being buried deep underground nearby. As for the 3 men who tragically lost their lives, they were each placed in lead-lined caskets inside a metal vault and then encased in concrete. To this day, no one knows exactly why the control rod was removed from the reactor. However, the most common theory suggests that one of the men's wives was having an affair with his coworker, and instead of crying and begging him to stop like a real man, he simply pulled the control rod instead, successfully avoiding a potentially awkward conversation. Number 7. The Tokaimura Criticality Accident. On September 30th, 1999 in Japan, 3 workers at the Japan Nuclear Fuel Conversion Company decided to take a shortcut while preparing uranium-enriched fuel. This fateful decision not only cost 2 of them their lives, but also endangered hundreds of innocent people. It all began when the 3 men skipped several key safety steps to meet shipping deadlines, accidentally mixing 7 times the limit of uranyl nitrate into the mix, as well as using uranium that was enriched to 18.8%, which was much higher than the 3 to 5% that was needed. This led to an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction, as the men were met with a bright blue burst of light, which released a significant amount